Retreat series, Dhamma talk number 55. In the last Dhamma talk, we presented two lines from the Paticcasamuppada, which is Phassa Picchaya Vedana. Conditioned by mental contact, feeling arises. And then Vedana Picchaya Tanha, conditioned by feeling, craving arises. Okay. A part of that it is discussed in the last Dhamma talk. But I like to go through a little bit more on it, presented in a with different words. Okay. Phassa. What is phassa? In English is called mental contact. Mental contact means there's a living being or human, you, me, I. When we are there, there's always something happening in our life. What it is we are always interfacing with the objects from outside. What are the outside objects? Form, size, shape, color, or sound, or smell, or taste, and then tangible object. Those are the external objects. And they always come and strike. The form strike your eyes, the sound strike your ears, smell strike your nose, taste with the tongue, and tangible object with your body. And also, of course, all your thoughts and imagination or memories, recalls, strike your mind. It's always happening, anytime, every time, all the time. And whenever those, let's use eyes, the eyes and the object are in a straight line. Okay? Straight line. You see, at that moment, as soon as those are in a straight line and when you see, there's a seeing happen. Seeing happen. Seeing happen because the object's in a straight line with your eyes or retina, and there's attention. And seeing happen at that moment, we call it seeing. What it really means is seeing consciousness arises. So when the external object, rupa or material, internal object, retina, rupa, internal material object, and knowing. If those three come together, the condition is those three must be together at the same moment, at the same point. At that moment, phassa, mental contact happen. So you can call it external object, the striking element. Internal object as a receiving element. And then this seeing consciousness, okay, we can call it igniting element. Sometimes Buddha talks using the word elements. Okay? Striking element, receiving element, and igniting element. When something strikes, when a rock strikes another rock, there's a spark happen, ignited. Just like that. So striking element, receiving element and igniting element. When those three elements come together, that point or that moment, that state is called phassa, mental content. So these corresponding consciousness, now basically seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, smelling consciousness, they do their own function. You can call it consciousness, or you can call it knowing, or you can call it simple, ordinary awareness of the object. These things always happen all the time, all the time, all the time. One after the other, non-stop. And that process is called Dhamma of continuous effect. Basically continuous effect, but we use the word in front, Dhamma, a phenomenon or process of continuous effect. That phassa, arising of the consciousness, is called continuous effect. And this continuous effect, the first one in a life, in a person's life, the first one in a person's life is the rebirth consciousness. Okay? Rebirth consciousness, which arises at the point of conception, not when you are born. As soon as you are conceived in the womb, the point of conception, the first consciousness or rebirth consciousness arises. And thereafter, all these consciousness arises. They are called resultant consciousness. Okay? Resultant consciousness, it arises. In Pali, it's called vipaka citta. And it continuously arises till you die. And that is called continuous effect. Okay? Continuous effect. Dhamma of continuous effect. And whenever the phassa come in, okay, whenever there is a phassa, suddenly another new Dhamma is born, or another new Dhamma arises. What is that new Dhamma? The new Dhamma is Vedana, feeling arises. Okay. All these things, objects, rupa, okay, knowing, nama, rupa, and all these eye bases, ear bases, sense bases, salayatana, and then the contact, and then the feeling. They are called continuous effect, Dhamma of continuous effect. And all these things what we talk, like now it sounds like theory, but you can actually know them through continuous observation. Okay? Continuous observation or continuous noting or continuous unbroken mindfulness. Through that you can come to know yourself. So these three Dhamma, what are they? Contact, phassa, and then knowing, and then the feeling. Contact, knowing, and feeling. These three are the most obvious mental factors or Dhamma among all the Nama Dhamma. Nama Dhamma is everything and anything that the mind and mental factors operation called Nama Dhamma. Among all those things, these three are the most obvious. Contact, phassa, and then respected corresponding consciousness or knowing, and then the feeling. So that's why these three become the key points or key factors to observe. Obvious. We must observe what is obvious. These are the Dhamma, which is most obvious among all the Nama Dhamma. Nama Dhamma, mental phenomena, mental processes. And you must observe them in such a way you know it, or you see it, you feel it in sequence. There's the external object, internal object, there's knowing, phassa, and then vedana, feeling. Must do that way. Because if you don't know this process as it occurs, as it is happening at the present moment, at that moment, another Dhamma arises. That Dhamma is called avijja, ignorance. If you don't know this series of process, when it is happening, as it is happening, another Dhamma arises. That Dhamma is called avijja, ignorance. So, this ignorance, or not knowing of this system, this little program, this little process, what we mentioned, that process, if you don't know, automatically what does it do? It creates a thirst and hunger, or craving for that little process. Phassa, vedana, contact and feeling. You begin to develop thirst and hunger and craving for that process. If you don't know what it really is. And repeated exposure to it, the cravings grows and grows and grows, and it comes into the point of becoming grasping. Craving is called in Pali tanha, grasping in Pali is called upadana. Basically, big strong craving, grasping, it arises. And along with this grasping, there's another thing arises. It arises what is called wrong perception. Wrong perception of the process. How do you see it? You begin to identify with I. I like it. I want it. I don't like it. I don't want it. I hate it. I want to own it. That is the perception of that process. You come to know, you come to believe as I. Why? Because you don't truly understand the real nature of that process. And that process, you identified it as I. In Pali, that's called Vatta, a self or a soul. So, not knowing the process, you don't know this process. There's a word for it, another word. Not knowing the process is called moha. English, delusion and illusion. Simply. And when you don't know what happened, you have a thirst and hunger for the feelings, especially for the pleasant feelings. And thirst and hunger for the pleasant feeling is called lobha in Pali. English straight direct translation is greed, delusion and greed. And also, suddenly what happened? You have a craving, you have a greed for that pleasant feeling. And suddenly you begin to feel afraid or worry about losing that little pleasant feeling. That being worried about losing that little pleasant feeling is called dosa. So basically, just from that ignorance, avijja, what do they arise? Moha, delusion, lobha, greed. hunger, and then dosa, afraid, scared, worry, angry. These three arises. And then not only these three, because these are in operation now, and these operation angry, I hate it, I love it. It's always with I hate, I love, not simply anger itself, not even joy itself. It is with I. So suddenly you got attached to this feeling, and then suddenly you identify that process as I. And this lobha, dosa, moha, collectively in Pali it is called kilesa, mental defilements, because it defiles the mind, kilesa. And the nature of kilesa is always impure, dirty. It's simple. But also it can produce burning feeling, suffering. It can produce suffering. It produces stress, simply put it. Stress. That is what mental defilement does to one. Lobha, dosa, moha. Okay. Why is it? Because we don't know the process as it is. And it is quite difficult to know the process as it is, because the way the mind works, the speed of the mind is incomprehensible. We can't comprehend it. Just in general, put it, rough figure. A consciousness arises and passed away. That span or lifespan of a consciousness is more than 17 billion of a second. More than 17 billion of a second. So in other words, in 1 second, more than 17 billion consciousness arises and passes away. That's the speed they are operating. So it is very difficult for us to understand the process. Now we know how this lobha, dosa, moha, kilesa come into, and we call it, that called kilesa. And then because of this kilesa, or conditioned by kilesa, or put it plainly, because you want it, you don't want it, you hate it, you love it. Okay? If you do with the personal level. As soon as you hate it, you want it, what happened? You do something about it. When you hate, you do something about it. When you love it, you do something about it. When you are sad, you do something about it. When you do something about it means you just put yourself into action. Only 3 ways you can put into action. One is a physical action, you physically do it. One is verbal action, you verbally expressed those likes and dislikes. And also mentally, even though you might not be putting out first, putting a straight face, a smiling face to others, but in your mind you're scheming and planning how to counter the situation. So that's what happened when you don't like, or when you like something, you put into action. Like, dislike is kilesa. This putting into action, that is called Kamma. Kamma, K-A-M-M-A, Kamma in Pali, K-A-R-M-A, Kamma in Sanskrit. So you put into action. So if you want to put it a little bit properly, conditioned by kilesa, karma arises. Karma is conditioned by kilesa. And this karma is one of the mental factors, cetasika. So like every other mental factors, like every other cetasika, they have the same quality. One quality is they arises and passed away at a speed that we could not comprehend. They arises and pass away like every other mental factors, cetasika. But one thing is this karma, mental factor karma, is a little unique in one way. Even though it passed away, what it is it left a potentiality to produce in the future. In other words, this karma, what is karma in a very simple word? Karma is action. Whenever you do an action or when you cause something, there must be effect, cause and effect. And in this karma, that effect could be immediate, that effect could be a little later, or that effect could be next life, or that effect could be many lives in the future. But regardless, it will arise. It left a potentiality to produce the effect. That's the unique thing about this mental state karma. So we know now two things. One is kilesa, mental defilements. Conditioned by it, karma arises. And then when you do all these things, okay, actions, physical, verbal, mental actions, what happened? That action also produces result. But in here, we'll put it into not immediate. Or you do now and next week you got it. Or you work so hard for a year, you got promoted a year later. That is something we can track in this life. But we'll track to the next life. All the actions that you do, both good and bad actions, it produces a result. The result is being reborn in the next life. Reborn or rebirth. So, karma is the cause and rebirth is the effect. Or, conditioned by karma, rebirth happens or another life happens. So, whenever you do good actions in this life, next life you will be reborn in a good existence. Good existence. We consider human as a good existence. Deva is a good existence. Brahma is a good existence. If you do good actions, that can produce better existence of different realms. It has to be correspondingly related. And also if you produce or do bad actions or bad karma, you'll be reborn in the four woeful states. Simply put, in a realm where the suffering is excessive and constant. Suffering is excessive and constant. That's what the product of bad karma. And here we now know rebirth. Okay, you are reborn. Whenever you are reborn, what happened? Why this rebirth happened? Because of the ignorance about the nature of mind and matter and their process. And you are still here because that ignorance has been with you like billions and trillions and zillions of past life. In those past life you are ignorant. Because of that you are still ignorant now. That's ignorance. So you are born with that ignorance, avijja. You are born not knowing what the true nature of mind and matter is. You don't know this mind and matter operates in a system called process. And then what happened? You have this not knowing the true nature. When you don't know the true nature of mind and matter, you start doing things. Okay. A craving, Dhamma arises. Aversion, okay. Dosa arises. They arise again. In other words, this lobha, dosa and moha, mental defilements, okay, it creates actions. And then these actions create rebirth. And the rebirth is, you come with the ignorance. And then the whole things go on and on again. This causal relationship. Okay. This causal relationship never ends. Kilesa, condition, karma. Karma, condition, rebirth. Rebirth, with ignorance, you go into the same loop again and again and again. That's how we keep going round and round, spinning round and round in samsara. Samsara means endless cycle of birth and death, birth and death. We go there round and round. And this cycle, okay, cycle produced by kilesa, karma and rebirth. And that cycle, there's a word they call it. Just like lobha, dosa, moha, we call it kilesa, mental defilement. And this rounds of kilesa, karma and rebirth, it's called Vatta. V-A-T-T-A, Vatta. In English, it's translated as round, R-O-U-N-D, round. So this endless rebirth is driven by the unbroken change of cause and effect of these three rounds. What are the three rounds? Rounds of kilesa, rounds of mental defilement, rounds of karma, rounds of action, or rounds of rebirth, or rounds of vipaka, rebirth, rounds and rounds, resultant. Rebirth is the result, so technically it's called vipaka, resultant. But for pure easy communication, I use the word rebirth. Proper word is called vipaka, resultant. Result of the past action. And what is it? That result is, in a simple word, is called rebirth. So this unbroken change of the cause and effect of the three rounds go and on. And how this life happened. Die, born again, die, born again, die, born again. This is how Buddhists see the birth or coming of life. Rebirth or coming of life. So it's a process, it's a system that's going on. From the Buddhist point of view, you and me, human being, all living beings for that matter, are not created by any powerful beings, any supreme being. They are not created by it. It is simply a phenomenon. It's a process that is going on and on and on and on. And if we don't know it, we just think we're born and we die and we're born and we die. I. But if you observe it, you can see, you can understand that change of cause and effect. But one must intently, continuously observe the present moment. Whatever is happening at the present moment, one must observe it. If you observe it, one can understand this process. Not from theory, not from book, not from lectures, but you have to directly experience it. So this round of Vatta, what is this round of Vatta? It is the continuous process of, or continuous change of, cause and effect. That is called Vatta or round. And if you want to really understand this change of cause and effect, you need to study dependent origination called Patissa Samuppada Sutta, discourses on the dependent origination. The Buddha explained with 12 parts, or linking one to the other, how this endless life and death going on. But in here we are not going to deal that in such detail. We can still explain to understand with these rounds of Vatta. By explaining these three Vatta, three rounds, we can understand it. In fact, we already have a certain idea how it is operating. If you look at it, this kilesa, lobha, dosa and moha, it is endlessly going on. Okay? Just look at your life. There's something or the other. There's a want and don't want. Sometimes you are not certain about it, you are not sure about it. These things are going on and on and on. That means kilesa, mental defilement, is going on and on. That means it is going round and round and round. Kilesa is going round and round. It's around by itself. It's constantly in operation, constantly walking. That's what round is. Kilesa is walking all the time. And because of the kilesa, what happened? Kilesa, you can call it lobha, dosa or moha, or you can call it in a different way, avijja. Avijja is what? Ignorance. Tanha is craving, and upadana is grasping. You can call it ignorance, craving and grasping. Okay. When you crave for something, when you like it, that's one thing. When you're afraid, that's become dosa. So we don't in here use the word dosa, but simply craving. Craving for things you like and craving not to be with things that you don't like. That's dosa. So basically, kilesa is avijja, tanha and upadana. Ignorance, craving and grasping. And that is spinning round and round. And because of that, those are always poking and poking and poking at you. Okay, lobha is poking at you. Greed is poking at you. Dosa, anger is poking at you. Because of that poking, you start dancing. They are like a puppet master, and you are a puppet. You start doing things, good things, bad things, wicked things, helpful things, all these things. And these are what? Kamma, actions. And actions are non-stop too. So kamma itself is the round itself, endlessly operating. That's why it is called Kamma Vatta, Kamma rounds. That's why it's called Kilesa Vatta, Kilesa round. Rounds of mental defilements, rounds of karma, going on and on. And then when you do all these things, what's happened? In all actions, in all causes, actions are causes. There's a result. And the result is called vipaka. Translated, resultant, or products that comes out. Resultant, vipaka. This vipaka is what? We explained it at the beginning. It's called continuous effect. Vipaka is the continuous effects produced by the actions of past life. What are these continuous effects? You remember? Vipaka. If you want to talk it in terms of the Paticcasamuppada. Vijnana, your consciousness, your mind and matter, your body and consciousness, and then your six sense base, eye base, ear base, and so on. And then the mental contact, and then the feeling. They are automatically, they are going on and on and on. It's a program by the past life actions, and it's go on. And they are all effects. That's why it's said continuous effect. They go in a series just like the way explained, and then another one, and another one, and another one, and another one keep on rising as effects. That's called continuous effect. So those are the three Vattas, or three rounds. Kilesa Vatta, rounds of mental defilement. Kamma Vatta, rounds of actions. Vipaka Vatta, rounds of rebirth. Rounds of rebirth. Three Vattas is going on. You can explain cycle of life and death with these three rounds. We call it life. Okay? Your life, my life. What is your life, my life? It is our mind and body. When we have a mind and body, we call it, I am alive. This is my life. That's what life is. So this Nama and Rupa, or this life, is the result of what? It caused or conditioned by karma, the past actions. And then these actions, what conditioned them, what caused them? It's conditioned and caused by kilesa, mental defilements. That's how it's connected, through the change of cause and effect. Your life is conditioned or produced by the actions of past life. And those actions are conditioned and produced by mental defilements. And another thing that we always need to know is, whenever all past and present lives, whatever rebirth you have in any existence, it's always have associated, let's call it a base element. A base element is called avijja. It's always associated with avijja. So this is trying to see the same thing. The three rounds, approach it in a different way so that we have a little better understanding. So life, we have life now. And if you don't observe your life, you won't know the truth. If you don't observe your life, you won't understand what your life is about. But life, let's go to a little bit more detail what life means. What do we call life? In our life, what do we do? I can summarize in 6 points what we do. It covers everything. Okay. Everything that we see, seeing consciousness. Everything that we hear, hearing consciousness. Everything we smell, smelling consciousness. Everything we taste, taste consciousness. We touch consciousness. And we think, thought consciousness. Those 6 are the 6 components. When those 6 components combine together, we call it life. So what we do is, these 6 components, if we do not observe these 6 components of life, we would never truly understand what life is. But automatically, if you just keep it under that condition, we began to believe. We began to believe like life is great, life is pleasant, life is fantastic. Even there's moments of many moments of suffering. We never talk about suffering. We sweep the suffering under the rug and only talk about how great, how successful, how pleasant. That is the face we put up. So we believe life is pleasant and we present it life as pleasant. And why do we do that? The reason is we don't understand the truth or the true nature of the process of mind and matter. We are totally ignorant about it. So, ignorance. And then what happened? The change goes on. Kilesa arises. Then karma arises. Then rebirth arises. And endlessly going on and on. It's in a circle. It doesn't have an escape route. One after the other, it is loop going on. That's what happened. And in here, we keep talking about these three realms. But also, some people might already seen it. We should know there's a called supporting cause. Supporting cause is playing a role in there. This supporting cause feeds this kilesa to grow and to grow and grow and make it powerful, so that it would never burn out or stop. There's a supporting element. And that supporting element in Pali is called Kamma Sukha. Kamma Sukha. Kamma Sukha is sense pleasure. The pleasure you get out of seeing beautiful things, hearing beautiful sounds, and so on. Sense pleasure is the supporting element. And what is this sense pleasure? Sense pleasure is the combination of two factors. One is the sense desire for senses. That's the one aspect by itself. And another one is karma vittu, sense object. Only when you have the sense object with the sense desire, then sense pleasure arises. Even though there's a sense object, if you don't desire, sense pleasure doesn't arise. That's why sense pleasure is composed of these two parts: sense desire and sense object. And the reason for this growth of kilesa, or craving or grasping. So we don't see faults in these sense pleasure. We think sense pleasures are great, fantastic. It makes us happy. It makes us secure. It makes us safe. Sense pleasure. We don't see any faults in that. And because of that, we desire for it, and because of that, our kilesa grows and grows and grows. Our craving grows and grows and grows endlessly. So, in here, we keep talking about this growth of kilesa, because this craving for kilesa, craving for sense pleasure, once a person perceived that sense pleasure is great, good and dandy, it makes me happy, it doesn't stop there. You want more, and you want more, and you want more, and more, and more. That means at that moment it becomes grasping, upadana, more and more. And the more you grasp with all these sense pleasure, automatically, because of the ignorance, you see, I want it, I want to have it, I want to own it, I want to possess it, I want to maintain it, I want to defend it, I. The wrong view of atta, or I, or id, or ego arises. That's a change. It's cause and effect, very simply explained through cause and effect. So intensity of this Dhamma craving, it varies. Varies based on the, simply put, based on the power of the sense objects. Some sense objects, they can move you a little bit. Some sense object, they can move you a lot. Some sense object, they will drive you crazy to the point of obsession. Depending on the nature of the sense object and also your personal weakness. Everybody has a weakness. They are not the same. Whenever your weakness is being touched, you're gone. A certain objects, a certain condition can really touch you. You are weak, and at that moment, whatever your determination and willpower is gone, washed away. So that is how the intensity of Dhamma or craving works, based on the nature of the sense object and the personal weaknesses. But to put it in a different way, more technical way, what really it is, what is it? You might have heard the word Cetana, volition. Cetana, volition. Cetana, volition is a mental factor. Okay? And the Buddha said, in one word, Kamma is Cetana. Kamma is Cetana. And technically speaking, it is Cetana, volition is Kamma. But this volition, Cetana, it has a various degree, it's a various strength. Okay. Let's say sometime you want to give. Yeah, I want to give. Oh gosh, just a meal will be enough. Sometimes, oh no, what about next? Then you may have to, not only that you go and feed the person who needs food only once, you make sure you have a lunch and dinner and for the next day. That's a different Cetana, stronger Cetana. And then later, no. You go to the store and, okay, I'm going to pay you for 30 days. Whenever this guy comes, give him this hamburger every day. That is, you have a stronger Cetana, stronger volition. Volition changes. So there's a variation in the strength of this volition Cetana. And this causes, okay, those are the key reasons. It causes the variation and the intensity of craving. You have craving. Your craving also varies according to the strength of Cetana. Craving. So in here, we're going to put this craving into a certain framework. These are the words that we put in so that we can clearly communicate it. But in Pali, it's just one word, Cetana, volition, that changes everything. But in here, just for communication purpose, we will put a lot of words in. Craving. Craving is, one craving is called process craving. Process craving is simple thing. Simple thing. Let's say there's an apple on the table. You want to eat it. You want to eat. As soon as you want to eat it, of course, oh, I take it and eat it, finish. That's one way of explaining, and which this is the common way of it. There's an apple, I took it and ate it. Great. But if you observe that process of that eating the apple, first of all, you have to lift your hand. And then stretch your hand. You don't lift your hand until unless you want to lift. You don't stretch your hand until unless you want to stretch. Just see. You lift it and say, I don't want to stretch. Your hands will not move. Your hands will not stretch. Stretch your hand. And then you want to grab the apple. and you grab the apple. You want to bend your hand so the apple gets close to you. When you want it, it's bent. And then you want to rub it and clean it, and then rubbing and cleaning happen. And then you lift it up. You want to eat it. You want to open your mouth, the mouth open. You want to bite it, you bite it. See? This is called process. Little segment of things that you need to carry out. They are separate on their own. Everything is separate. It's one at a time, one department at a time. Lifting department, pushing department, grabbing department, eating department. And in there's a command. Stretch it, bend it, grab it. There's a command. And right after the command, there's an action. Stretching, bending, grabbing, chewing. And that is a process, or all these little things that you need to do, and each one has their own command and actions. In other words, wanting to, or craving, and then action. Or the words we use called intention. Intention to stretch, stretching. Intending to bend, bending. Intention. So that is something that go on, that is called process craving. Or there's an intention. That intention will create manners and behaviors and the actions. So that is one level of craving, but that craving must be strong enough. Okay? That command must be strong enough for things to do, to stretch, to bend, to grab, to eat. If the command is not strong, it wouldn't happen. So that's one level of craving. It's called process craving. And another one is, let's say, we already said something. I want to eat the apple. I want to eat the apple. Because of that, I want to eat the apple, those processes happen. This I want to eat the apple, let's call it wanting mind. The first one is called intending mind. Intending mind has one level of power of craving. Wanting mind has another power of craving. What is wanting mind? In general, let's say all the routine activities you do every day. Wanting to eat, wanting to sleep, wanting to have a shower, wanting to go for a walk, wanting to cook, wanting to clean, wanting. That is the another level of craving, wanting. We will define it and with wanting mind. The first one is intending mind. This one is wanting mind, stronger. And the next one coming in, I will use the word grasping mind. Grasping mind means it's a lot stronger. When you have the grasping mind, you cling onto the object or the idea or the situation. You cling and you got attached to it. Grasping mind. In other words, your craving power is very strong. Craving power, level of power of craving is very strong. Because you are totally attached to it, you become obsessed to it. And when you become attached and obsessed and clinging to something or someone, what do? You start doing things in a very significant way, very obvious way, which means you begin to do wholesome things and unwholesome things. And when you do those things, what are you doing? You are creating good and bad karma. So that is another level of craving. Karma forming level or strength of craving, which we call it grasping. In Pali, it's called upadana, separate. It is the karmic life-forming, life-producing. So in here, we act all these things, we do all these things. Why? Because we believe Kamma Sukha, these sense pleasures are fantastic and great. It makes us happy, it makes us secure, it is beneficial and good. But let's suppose, if we know this sense pleasure is faulty, imperfect, and dangerous to us, what do you think we will do? We will stop chasing after it. But we must know, or we must see that it is faulty, imperfect, and dangerous. As soon as you do that, you will stop chasing after that craving, that pleasure, the sixth sense pleasure. Simple logic, simple cause and effect. So if one fails to observe these feeling, Vedana, with full foundation of mindfulness, if you fail to observe with full foundation of mindfulness about the characteristics of the feeling, about the functions of the feelings, and about the manifestation of the feelings. Okay, just to put an example, dukkha vedana, okay, painful, unpleasant feeling. That feeling can really make your mind withered, make your mind weak, and it will torture your mind, these feelings. And let's say sukha vedana, pleasant feeling. What does that do? That sukha feeling, whenever that pleasant feeling arises, it freshens all the mental associate that arises with it. It freshens it, make it more even joyful and brighter. That is the function of sukha vedana. So those things, when you start observing, you begin to see. There's just a little blip or a peek into it. It's a lot more, of course. And then there's a word called sanya. Sanya is perception. Perception about this feeling. How do you perceive it? Oh, pleasant feeling, great, fantastic, good, makes me happy. Unpleasant feeling, no good, it's miserable. Those are the perception we have. All of us have the same thing. So that's a perception we have. But that perception could be changed. That perception could be changed if you practice this full foundation of mindfulness and got insight into this feeling. You got wisdom and insight into the feeling. Once you have insight and wisdom into these pleasant and unpleasant feeling, your perception about feeling vedana changes. It can be changed, but you must walk hard enough to have insight into the actual process, actual nature. And if you know the true natures of this feeling, you will erase the wrong understanding about this feeling. That's what will happen. And if you know the truth, and if you see the fault, what happens? Automatically craving is gone, because you know the truth and you know the faulty nature, you know the danger of the sense pleasure. At that moment you have no craving for the sense pleasure anymore. That means you have no attachment to the sense pleasure, which means you will never grasp, you will never cling to these sense pleasure anymore. All that you see is you see the truth and you know their faults. Experientially, not intellectually. And at that moment, what happened? If you have no grasping, who's grasping? I am grasping. If there is no grasping, I is gone. There's no more I. No more grasping, no more I. So with correct mindfulness, if you can apply correct, precise mindfulness with no break or no gap, sense pleasure have no chance to manifest into craving or grasping or into wrong view. If you practice correct, precise mindfulness with no break and no gap, sense pleasure has no chance to manifest itself into craving, grasping, and wrong view. And at that state, at that moment, it is called Vatta, not Vatta, Vatta. Basically, there's no more rounds, no more Vatta. That means the change of cause and effect is broken. That means no more rebirth, no more suffering. So may all of you be able to practice full foundation of mindfulness precisely and correctly. May you be able to break the change of Vatta rounds as soon as possible.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.